My most popular video by far is my top 5 bossa novas, where I walk through what I think are the top 5 best bossa novas. And I have a split screen where 2 of me is playing. One of me is playing those bossa nova chords, and the other one is playing just the melody. But at the beginning of that video, I do this for Black Orpheus. A lot of people have commented on that and asked me how I'm doing that and where they can get that. But that's an example of taking the chords and the melody and putting them together into a chord melody. What I want to do in this tutorial is take 3 of those great bossa novas, take the main theme and show how we can play just the melody, just the chords, but more importantly, how we can put them together and the compromises that we have to make in order to come up with a cool bossa nova chord melody arrangement. We're going to look at the main themes, those catchy opening melodies of Girl from Ipanema, Black Orpheus, and Corcovado. Let's start with Corcovado. Here's what we're going to end up with. We're just talking about that main opening catchy theme. Here's the chords. A minor 6. Then we're going to what we could call A flat diminished. This is really kind of a mystery chord that we'll talk about. Then we have G minor 7. C9, which is a variation of C7, and then F diminished 7th, and then F major 7th. But here's the melody. So that's a pretty simple melody, certainly as bossa novas go. Not that syncopated, although there's definitely syncopation there. I would play it down here at the beginning if I were going to play to a looper, let's say, because that's kind of in that speaking register that you hear on the record when he sings it. But if we tried to play the melody there over these chords, we're going to lose a lot of strings. We really can't get away with playing it that low, or it's going to sound really weird and spare. For example, it would sound like this. It's pretty cool, I guess. Right, and that might be a good way maybe to open the song. And this is all about coming up with your own arrangement and seeing what works for you, what's too hard for you, and what's too easy. You can make it more complicated. But we're going to take it an octave higher, and here's the melody up 1 octave. All right, so if this is our chord, A minor 6, if we were just playing the chords, we would just be playing a simple bossa, right? And we would say, like the textbook, or one of the textbook ways to play a bossa, is our thumb playing the bass on the 1 and the 3. But as we start to add elements in the melody, we're going to have to take things out, or maybe we might want to add some things in the thumb. We might want to make things a little more samba-esque, or, I really don't like to adhere to all these supposed rules about stuff. I've played a bossa nova before where people are saying, you're playing too many bass notes. Okay, whatever. Okay, there we're doing a little arpeggio just to fill the time. So again, the chord is this, but we want to put this on top. So how can we do that? Play that block chord there, got the bass note, the block, and then take the pinky off of my left hand. And we're just really toggling, we're really getting off easy with this song. That's why I started with the song. Because I mean, that's not that hard at all. Because obviously that's not a lot going on there. We're taking the pinky off and putting it back. So that's great. For that matter, we could play block chords every time. We could go. I think that sounds cool, but it gets monotonous pretty quick. Okay, you could do an arpeggio or whatever you want right there. Now we're going to go to this next chord. The melody is the same though. And here's this new chord. I just think of this as a G13 chord with a flat 9 in the bass. Because it's not really a diminished 7th chord because of this E note right here. But that's just the melody note. And it's not uncommon, in fact, to have a G7 that becomes a G minor, as we'll see, literally those same 2 chords in the Girl from Ipanema. Okay, now we're going to bar this, If you were just playing by yourself and somebody else were singing or playing the melody, you could play G minor 7 like that. That feels better. But we're barring it here so we can get this melody. But we're going to go across strings. So it just works out kind of perfectly. Okay, but we lost some notes in the chord by doing that. Bass note, block chord, and then I'm going to play just that note, take it off, because I don't want it to ring out. You could leave it down if you like. Then we'll go over here to, all of this just kind of is so seamlessly morphs into this, so perfect. It's just, you know, kind of an accident, I guess. How I keep my pinky down, get this chord. Every once in a while I'll play a rest stroke there. And then we got this. We'll leave this finger down, and that really guides us down here to C9. Chord changes right there. Melody notes now with the pinky. And then that's F diminished. Then to F major 6 or F major 7. But we need this melody note in there. This F diminished to me is really just another way to play E7 with a flat 9 in the bass. So weird. But that's like this deceptive resolution. I have a video, a YouTube short on that actually. This, to me, F diminished 7th to F major 7 is just a reharmonization of going E7 to A minor. Just much more sweet and jazzy. Okay, so you should always be trying to see if you can work in these two things together. But let's look at the whole lead sheet for Corcovado. Here it is. You can screenshot this. This is that whole thing. So you got the melody up there and the name of the chord. So we need to know how to play those chords. It's not telling us how. So it's good to know at least a few ways to play any given chord. But again, if you were playing just the chords, A minor 6, then to A flat diminished 7th for lack of a better name, G minor 7, C9, F diminished 7th to F major 7. But the melody is ending on a D note, so we need to put that in there. You could play F major 13. A lot of options when you're playing those chords. If you're not sure about the Bossa Nova pattern, how to do that, I have an entire course on the Bossa Nova. How to read those lead sheets, how to memorize the notes on the bass strings, which is where we're going to be naming and rooting a lot of those chords that you need. A bunch of different patterns, a way to get into syncopation and really play your own chord melody. We end up playing an Autumn Leaves chord melody, Bossa Nova style at the end of that. So check that out at the link below if you want to get more into Bossa Nova. Okay, now let's look at that first iconic part of The Girl from Ipanema. Here are the chords, F major 7. Then we go to what we think might be the 2 chord, but it becomes a dominant 7th chord. Then it becomes minor, that's G minor. And then instead of going to the 5, which will be very common, and Corcovado did that, it went 2-5, from G minor 7 to C9, or C7. But a good substitution for this chord would be this. Look, here's a C7. And then put the flat 5 in the bass, and we have G flat 7 flat 5. It's kind of like a quintessential Ipanema thing. And that's just another way of playing C7, but it sounds so, I'll use the word iconic again. Okay, so that whole thing would sound like this. Or we can play G13. So there I'm doing a lot of anticipation where we get to the chord and play the upper notes first. That's another thing that we'll try to do it when we put the melody with the chords, but we're, just running on all cylinders there and have to leave some things behind. You can't have, in a perfect world, we would be playing exactly this, the full Bossa Nova beat, and then on top, that melody, which we'll look at in a moment. But you just can't do that on one guitar fully at every given moment. So we just do it when we can. When there's a blank spot, that's when we can, a blank spot on the melody. That's when we can do more of that Bossa Nova thing. Sometimes we might just have to do notes all by themselves with no chord underneath. And we did that, we saw that in Corcovado when we played that part. But we should always be striving to make it interesting and see if you can put those things together. But let's look at the melody of Ipanema, starting on a G note. Not too weird, not too bad. Easy enough, but if we want to put it with the chords, what are we going to do? I think a good strategy starting out for building your own solo arrangement is just play the melody and the bass note, okay? Don't worry about the bossa nova right now. Now for this one, we still have the same melody, but we know we're going to end up having to go up to this G chord or G13. So it's better to bar it, kind of like just like we did in Corcovado. And to get that same melody, that's G to E to D, do it here in this bar. And you could even put this finger down and you have all the strings now. Try not to play, if you're strumming in between the melody, try not to go higher sounding than the melody because you're going to undermine the melody and obscure it. That's why I'm going those 3 strings, then I'll come to these 3. I got the melody note there. It is a 13th over that chord. And when you're looking at those lead sheets and it gives you a fancy chord like a G13, usually that's because that's part of the melody is rendering that over the chord. You don't have to play the complicated chord. Play just a regular old G7. So when you see G13, just play G7 if you want. Now the next melody note is F, which we played down here, but I'm going to keep the bar. G minor 7 is the next chord. That's easy. Just take everything off, keep the bar, and now there's our F note. Not too bad. I'm playing a lot of bass notes. That open E string is such a perfect relief to get to this next chord. And I know the song was not originally recorded in the key of F. This is the American way to do it. But the good thing about it is that high E string gets you to this crazy chord, which is hard to set up. And we're kind of on our way there with that open string. And the melody is right inside the chord. That's another great thing. So hard chord. It would be worth it to learn that one. Very weird. You won't see it too often, but it does exist in jazz stuff for sure. But the melody is going C, C, B flat, C. Well, it's right there in the chord. Except this time when we go back to the C note, it's going to be part of the F major 7 chord. So we can go like this. If you want to toggle the bass, go right there. I'm just picturing that bar of a G7. Now from there it goes up a half step. But we're only talking about that main catchy riff or we'll be here all day. I know I use the word riff a lot, maybe too much. I also use the word awesome a lot, which I'm trying not to ever say again. I just said it though. One of my favorite songs of all time, beautiful melody, and one of my favorite songs to play, certainly, is Black Orpheus. So let's look at this one, starting with the melody first. Let's look at that. So that phrase is going to happen many, many times in the song, and we're just looking at just that first part. After that, it's going to go to a G natural. Really great chord progression too. But still, we're just sticking to that first section, okay? So if we have this, so a second ago I played this and then that. Well, that's an E note. We can just play it off the open string. Kind of helps us get it set up for the A minor chord that's happening, okay? After A minor, this is in the key of A minor. That's our 1 chord. The 2 chord, B minor 7 flat 5, which we can also play down here. And then E7, really obvious chords. This is like the most straight ahead one of these 3 in terms of wackiness. It's just a 1, 2, 5, 1. Here's how we might normally do it. A lot of these songs we're going to set up with a vamp at the beginning anyway. I like to go and play a B flat 9 right there. It's a substitution for E7, and that sounds pretty cool. For that matter, let's go extra nuts. A minor with an add 9. Or we can play A minor 6, just like Corcovado, but grab that top note. some people will accuse me of playing, I don't know, a samba right there or something. Do whatever you want. Okay, when you're making a chord melody, we are really confined most of the time to a certain spot. So if I want to play this high C note, I need to play an A minor right here. I could play it up like this, or I could just play it as kind of derived from this 5th position E minor shape. We can play it as a half bar. That's another happy accident that we're in this key. It's not an accident at all that we're in the key of A minor. It's a guitar key. I like to hear 9th sometimes, so I might go. I think that sounds awesome. So 2 notes all by themselves, and then we can set up the chord like that. B minor 7 flat 5. And then an E7 could be played like this. If the melody goes from a G sharp to a B, we can play E7 that way, and then this way. These are just voicings of an E7 chord, or diminished, and diminished on both for that matter. And then bar this next part. G7. I know I said I wouldn't go this far, but it's just such a great song. C major 7. Raise that bass up to C sharp. Now it's C diminished 7th, which is just another way to play A7. D minor 7. This is our autumn leaves progression. The cycle of fourths. Here's another great way to play a minor 7 flat 5. Like that. Take this note up an octave and we have. Such great tunes. Let me know if this worked for you, if you're actually able to tell what I'm doing and understand what I'm saying and do just the melody, just the chords, and then put them together. Remember, you can always revert back to just playing the bass note and the melody, and sometimes that's all you need, and that sounds really great too. So if you haven't seen that video yet and you want to see me play what I think are the 5 most awesome, there, I said it again, the 5 best bossa novas, you can see me do it on a split screen. Talk a little bit about how to play a bossa nova pattern. Check it out right here.